early, very early.
You want to see a dead body? Bang.
Yo, what's happening, y'all? Welcome back to OTB. All right, let's dive into this David Griffin press conference yesterday. I was about 25 minutes long, and it was vintage David Griffin. And in that, I mean that it featured all of the kind of flowery vocabulary that David Griffin is so adept at using. It's one of the reasons why I fell in love with David Griffin kind of originally. Also, if you listen to this show enough, you know I have a bit of a love of vocab as well. I just like words, right? And I like complicated words sometimes, but sometimes that stuff makes you sound like a bit of an a-hole. And it really starts to not work when the philosophies being espoused by that flowery language don't turn into success, right? It don't turn into wins. And so yesterday, Jake here, Mario, out of these clips, which one do you think kind of would reinforce this point the most? Do you have an idea? Maybe Griffin 2? Let's see what Griffin 2 sounds like, because you don't have to pick anyone. Griffin 2, this is what the Pelicans can learn from last season.
I do think the value in a season that difficult was that it was a very tense environment. It was sort of a crucible of sorts that gave us a great deal more insight into emotionally and spiritually what this was going to look like together. And I think in terms of the philosophical differences, it's really more about the energy, the enthusiasm we're going to bring to this on a daily basis and the approach we're going to bring to it on a daily basis.
And so there you go, right? A lot was said there, but kind of not much was said. Now, I do want to highlight the philosophical differences part, and it is telling that he highlighted energy, which would maybe speak to what you were talking about, Jake, old coach versus young coach. But the problem with that language is when things are good, it's great, and you sound like the smartest guy in the room, right? But it does lead to some people feeling that you're maybe being like that you're being disingenuous, or you're trying to make people think that you're smarter than you are. And look, maybe some of this is true. But it is just his style. And there were also some pretty honest moments in yesterday's press conference as well. Yeah. It wasn't all no speak. Like, he straight up said figuring out how to choose a head coach is like incredibly tough. And then he followed that up with, it was just this really honest moment where he was like, and maybe I'm not very good at it because I've had to do it so much. So, like, he just straight up called himself out as being like, look, yeah, I have not figured out how exactly this process works. What's your reaction to these clips, Jake, where he is talking about, like I said, things like spiritual challenges and philosophical differences and all of these different, like, concepts?
I just feel like he realizes he messed up. I feel like he is owning that, which is good. Owning it. Because what I didn't want to hear was him just really just circle around what was the real issue, and it was the wrong hire. And he didn't, right? Yeah. So for me, he realizes what he needs. Like when I hear him say energy, some youth, all of those things we saw the Pelicans were missing. And right, wrong, or indifferent, Stan Van Gundy's coaching style does not gel with today's NBA. It doesn't. You can like it, you can not like it. That's just the facts, okay? So maybe a guy that you would have hired 7 years ago that you thought would have been a really good coach, it's not going to be a good coach anymore. The NBA has changed. And again, you don't have to like it. You might disagree with it. But NBA players want a coach that they can relate with, that has energy, that is not a hard ass, all of those type of things. That's just the way the NBA is played now. When you look at the teams that are having the most success, they have a coach that fits the things that the Pelicans need to go look for.
Yeah, and so that's what they're going to try to do now. The big disconnect to me from the press conference yesterday, and I would go all the way back to the initial press conference when he talked about hiring Van Gundy. The disconnect to me is he keeps talking about philosophical differences. Now, the problem there is that was the entire reason why the hire was made originally. He said it was because him and Griff sat down and fully connected with one another. Like they just had one of those mind meld type of moments where they thought they were on the exact same page. Remember, if you go back to Griffin's original press conference on the hiring, he keeps talking about culture as being the reason why we hired Van Gundy, and their views were so aligned in creating a culture. And Van Gundy's opening press conference, he's sitting there and talking about building that culture a day at a time, and yet he didn't even last 9 months, right? So I wonder What went so wrong? Now, look, you know me, like I said, I'm a hiring, I don't know. Like, I think hiring just a complete crapshoot almost to begin with. And a lot of times things can look great on paper, but once you, what do they say? Like, no plan survives first contact. Like, right, like once you get into it, things are revealed that didn't come up in the interview process. And I guess what was real was everything Jake just said. It was just a horrible fit. I guess even in the end, Griffin and Van Gundy didn't see eye to eye philosophically. Now, I would say this. I credit Griff and the Pelicans and ownership, Miss Gail Benson, and the front office for avoiding the sunken cost fallacy, right? The same way that LSU did with Bo Pelini and company, moving on and not just thinking, well, we were so invested here that we have to continue down this path. But here's the question I would ask, because a lot of people will say, okay, well, that immediately ratchets up the pressure making this move, right? Does it actually ratchet up the pressure, or does it just put a magnifying glass on the situation? Because this was already a make or break year, right? Like if they went out and sucked this year, they were going to have to hit the reset button anyway. So what do y'all think? And Mario, feel free to hop in as well. Like, does this actually ratchet up the pressure, or just the attention that not just us, but the national media and everybody else will be paying to it?
I think it goes up a level, because even the national media, and I was listening on the way in this morning, they realized that Zion has the capability to be a top 5 NBA player. Like, it's not like, oh, you've got these nice pieces, you've got a good team. I would say it's even more than when you had like CP3 and those guys here. Like Zion, generational type guy. And that's the point that they were making. And you've got a
second all-star, which is crazy. You've got him and a second all-star.
And you've got some other nice pieces. So there's attention on this job because you have a generational talent on this team. And so you're not only going to hear it from the local media. Like, this is a small market team, but because Zion's on it, you're going to feel the pressure from everyone. And I think everyone now sees that Stan Van Gundy didn't work out. Everybody's paying attention to what happens with Zion and the Pelicans now. So there's going to be some heat and some attention on this job. You better make the postseason this year, or it feels like it could almost be blown up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Maybe just, with that increased attention comes more, maybe you're feeling that pressure more, but I guess just from a job security standpoint, I wonder, like, if you didn't make the playoffs, is Griff out anyway? Is the coach out anyway this next year? I feel like it already was setting up towards that. Mario, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's the latter of what you said. And first of all, if I'm a Pelicans fan, I stay far away from Rachel Nichols' show for a while, because it is going to put a magnifying glass, and it's not going to be very fun. But I agree with the second thing you said, because you guys cover the team. Y'all know. And what was y'all's biggest concern going into the next season? It's probably Stan Van Gundy, right? The roster's coming along, but he wasn't reaching the players, and the team seemed to be going nowhere.
Especially with the offseason, where the players have been very public about their kind of discontent with Van Gundy.
Exactly, and it's a good roster. As you said, you guys have 2 All-Stars. Not only that, but Nickeil Alexander-Walker as a starter last year played really well. He can make a jump this year. Jackson Hayes was playing really well towards the end of last season too, so it might be the right move. As you said, it's definitely going to put more attention on it, but honestly, I feel a little less worried next season knowing that somebody besides Stan Van Gundy is going to lead this group, because as you said, either way, the pressure was going to be on, and it was a make or break year anyway, and I wasn't feeling really good with Stan Van Gundy at the helm.
That's true. So, like, things may not the odds may not be in your favor, but maybe they're a little more in your favor than they were. I guess it's just hard to trust Griff at this point when it comes to hiring coaches, because he's the one that chose to stay with Alvin Gentry for an extra year when you definitely did not have to. He's the one that then brought in Van Gundy, which, as you said, Mario, nobody wanted. And so it's like, I mean, at a certain point, can he get it right? Will he get it right? And look, I love David Griffin. I still love how he talks about the city of New Orleans, right? This is a franchise in the NBA that's viewed as a bit of a joke, and he sincerely loves not just the franchise, but the city. And, like, all he wants to do is be successful for the city. It just remains to be seen if he can actually make it happen.
Do y'all have a mold or a type that y'all want to see come into this job? Like, do you have an idea of what you want this to be?
I've completely
definitely somebody younger, somebody more in touch with, as you said, the modern game. I don't know how much of a premium I honestly put on any head coach experience, because a lot of these guys have stepped in. I mean, Steve Nash had 0 coaching experience. Tyronn Lue had very little and won the championship with LeBron James. But it's really bad for me that Zion's on his 3rd coach in 3 years, and also Brandon Ingram is on his 4th coach in 4 years, going back to his time with the LA Lakers. So when I look at the internal candidates, Teresa Witherspoon and Fred Vinson, the shooting coach, I'm a little bit intrigued because if you go with one of them, they don't have very much head coaching experience, but you at least keep a little bit of the continuity, not only with Zion, but with all the core players from the Pelicans the last 2 years. Zion, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, if he's brought back, you at least keep some kind of stability to your franchise if you choose to elevate one of those internal guys.
And it's interesting that you highlight the internal guys because while Griffin did kind of shoot down the Witherspoon stuff, not saying that's not going to happen, but just really tried to deflate a lot of the hype that was growing. He did have some interesting comments about wanting to maintain as much of the staff as he could.
Yeah, Fred Vinson staying on staff. He's been on staff since 2010 under Monty Williams. He was the only person that Stan Van Gundy retained from Alvin Gentry's staff when he was fired. So he's saying he definitely wants to keep him.
And look at what Vinson's done. I mean, that makes a ton of sense, but it's just, I guess it's a bit intriguing because that also points towards like the disconnect really was solely almost in Stan Van compared to, as opposed to being just like a full coaching staff disconnect.
When you look at the 7 teams left in the postseason, because the Suns already got rid of the Nuggets, of the 7, 5 of the coaches played in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean maybe that's a play now. You just gotta hire a players coach like somebody knows. Now the interesting thing about highlighting Steve Nash and Ty Lue, well, like you said, Ty Lue had LeBron and Steve Nash has Harden, Durant, and Kyrie. So it's like, like Steve Kerr, right? Well, Steve Kerr's a great coach, you think, right? Well, why are the Warriors winning more without the Splash Bros and their superstar team they used to have? Why were they so good when they had fully healthy superstars lined up to depth? Because the players.
Yeah.
I mean, the players matter. Now, that's maybe the most disappointing part about Stan is you had seemingly the players to win more, and he seemed to be a net drain instead of at least somebody who could just manage the ship. So maybe you have enough talent. I mean, if you had shooting, certainly. But maybe you have enough talent where, you can hire an inexperienced former pro who just kind of can relate to the players more.
Yeah, especially now that they're a little bit more mature. I mean, Zion Williamson, a rookie, and then a second-year player the last 2 years. Brandon Ingram now going into his 5th season. The players are going to be a little more mature, so maybe you don't need a tactical coach because Hester's right. As of recently, most of the coaches are former players. But if you look at not so recent history or very recent history, they had a lot of really, really successful coaches that were non-players. When you look at Nick Nurse and the Raptors, Brad Stevens, who's now the GM of the Celtics. So that mold I thought would be good for the Pelicans. I thought at the time it would be good for them to get somebody like Stan Van Gundy, but obviously that was not the right move, and we'll see what they do now. Probably go to the other extreme and get somebody a little bit younger and not put as much of a premium on experience.
And even Brad Stevens was really good, and what did it mean in the end, right? Celtics fans still say that it meant nothing. So hiring's a crapshoot. I'm just hoping they get lucky. All right, when we get back, let's dive into some munchies with Chef Michael Johnson. Keep it locked right here on OTB.